Hello and welcome to Brews and Crews, where each week we'll pair one tank with one beer. This week we have the t3485 and the Lagunitas IPA. The Lagunitas Brewing Company was established in '93, moved to their current facility in '94, and launched their Lagunitas IPA in '95. This beer is excellent in terms of IPAs. The flavor profile is not one that will overwhelm your palate. You will definitely taste the hops, but it won't be off-putting for those who aren't accustomed to IPAs. It's kind of a good introductory IPA for most folks. It's a beer that can be drank in the summer or the winter, which is a rarity among IPAs. Typically the flavor profile is such that I would stick to IPAs and porters during the winter, and then pilsners, hefts in the summer. Some of the lighter stuff in the summer, but this is one that transcends both seasons, and it does so because its flavor profile is so versatile. Much like the t3485. Now the t34 is obviously iconic. Development started in '37. And quickly gained favor after the battles of Lake Khasan and Lake Khalkhin Gol demonstrated the flaws in existing Soviet tank design. A common story is one where a petrol-run Soviet tank would often catch fire when pressed by the Japanese army, and this spread throughout the ranks. Whether it was true or not, it became a common fear among soldiers, and in this case it was true. The T-34 encountered further monolithic resistance prior to the Winter War in Finland. The outcome of the Winter War, however, cleared the last resistance against the development of this tank. Initial production lots of the T-34 had excellent armor thickness and angling, which stood out among contemporaries, but it suffered from defective metallurgy, defective casting of the armor plate. Many T-34s weren't fitted with radios due to the expense and short supply, so they were only equipped into the command vehicles. Everybody else had to use signal flags, which is a complicated affair, especially in rough terrain. In spite of not being approved, early production runs also incorporated the better F-34 76.2mm gun instead of the L-11 of the same caliber. Through 1944, additional performance improvements that were known to designers were not implemented because of the pressures of the war. The only improvements that were allowed were those which reduced costs, increased production output, reduced scrap rates. Everything was geared towards manufacturing more tanks faster. In 1944, however, the second major version of the T-34, the T-3485, entered production. The 85 saw an increase in weight from the first production models, 29 tons to 35 tons, a reduction in ammo capacity from 76 to 60 rounds. They saw an increase in fuel capacity, though their range decreased due to the added weight, and a substantial increase in armor thickness by a factor of anywhere between 30% and 100%. What about combat effectiveness? In 1941, the kill-to-death ratio between German and Soviet forces was 8-1. In 42, it was 4.3-1. In 43, 2.7-1. 44, 2.5-1, and 45, 2-1. So you saw a consistent improvement in both the skills of the crews and the supply situation in favor of the Soviet forces. So let's go ahead and get into some gameplay. So we are playing on port at a Tier 6 game. I'm running the T3485 with the top package, that's the 85mm DST85BM. I'm fortunate enough to be top tier medium, so I'm going to be able to maneuver and actually use some of my paper thin armor. What I like to do here is move towards the middle. The middle of the map gives you good areas from which to skirmish, to spot, and to lay defilade fire on either of the main prongs of advance. Usually people will advance through the port itself, going into the construction area, the railway area, and crossing over on the east side of the map, or they'll move along the freeway on the west side of the map and then cut over across the north at the A1 area. So this position, when I'm looking left or right, I'm able to spot most of the way across the map, and that helps the team start to chew away at the enemy. Seems like the enemy is moving pretty quickly up the freeway. They are already in the B2 area, A2 B2 area, and a rough count in my head as I'm looking at the map tells me that most of the tanks and TDs have actually split along those main thrusts. So I'm going to take a little bit of a gamble and advance down the center and try to get some of those artillery pieces out of the game. Lucky so far. So it looks like our north has folded and the enemy's just making its way to our flag. But lo and behold, I've spotted all 3 artillery and I'm able to put shots in between the pillars, and they're going to have a heck of a time trying to hit me with the accuracy that they have. They're going to most likely be landing their shots within the buildings themselves. Yep, just like that. It allows me to take my time, pick my shots, and whittle them down. And he's going to try to drown himself, but I'm not going to let him. Now the last artillery is doing everything right. He just donkeys the shot into the wall. I would have done the same exact thing. But like I said earlier, the enemy has already folded our northern defenses and are moving in on our base. So I'm going to go for the cap and hope that one of the four tanks that were advancing through the port is going to come and help me. They were advancing pretty slowly. I didn't take a look at which tanks they were, so I'm not exactly sure how fast they're capable of going. So I'm not feeling very confident about risking the game trying to go back and sweep those last 3 tanks who are on our base. Thankfully, we have at least one of my teammates coming to help. Now, if we're lucky, we'll get a draw. If the artillery pieces that we have back at base are particularly aggressive, they could actually reset the cap and allow us to get a victory. Or even the medium that's crossing the bridge right there. At this point, if I were in the artillery's position, I would be perfectly fine sacrificing myself to reset the clock even a little bit. Not a bad showing. We've got a fair amount of XP, fair amount of damage. Got a Pascucci's medal, which is expected. So pretty good showing. Playing on Erlenberg, the t3485. There's really usually 2 ways to go on this map. One is where I'm heading now, just over to the side where there's a valley protected by a hill, or I head down towards the castle. Now that hill up there is excellent for spotting for their team. Makes it a little bit tough for us to advance. Thankfully I cleared most of the field before I was spotted, and I have a a slight hill there that I can rock back and forth, and they should only be able to see my turret. And since we don't have any artillery in the game, I can actually do this effectively. So the gun depression on this tank makes it a little difficult. Makes it to where I have to expose myself a bit more, but thankfully that Excelsior made it easy for me. I can duck back behind the hill a little bit so his buddies can't get me, and I can farm some of that damage. Pretty much anywhere I hit him, it's gonna be a pen. Oh, somebody I can't detect got me. But keeping everybody spotted so my team can harass them before they can get into position up on that hill. You can see the aim time isn't great for sniping, but we sink 2 home in anyway. Snapshot that M4. Now I'm gonna start pushing the hill. You know, I got two considerable heavies there in the valley, and I know that there's going to be at least some mediums, maybe some lights providing cover. I'd expect a TD if there were more. Get that guy out of behind the hill. Now what I'm going to be doing here is using the corpse of one of those, that tank right there, to provide some cover from the teammates that are trying to put fire down on me. I always want to minimize the amount of enemies that have a beat on you at any given time and maximize the damage that you're able to put out on them. So I use the environment, use dead vehicles, use the hills. That was a pretty lucky shot right there. But I take what I can get. Oh, Matilda bounced a shot off of that tank, just like I said I was intending. Pretty lucky bounce there. Alright, sink another one home. So I'm taking apart that Kaiju's support. So that Kaiju scares me a bit. Okay, I thought I might be able to pin that Matilda. Obviously I'm wrong. So I decided to go on the offense a bit. Figure I'm gonna have to deal with that Kaiju before I can make a move on the Matilda. Now I'm inside his envelope, and he's not going to be able to keep up with me. But I can't believe I bounced that. Alright. And there we go, we cleaned it up. So we got a lot of ribbons this time. High caliber, mastery badge, steel wall sniper, 5 kills. Pretty good showing.